Reddit women, why did you decide to cheat on your husband? I didn't cheat because I was looking for sex. I cheated because I was drowning and he didn't even look up. We've been married for 8 years. In the beginning, it was beautiful. Lazy mornings, whispered dreams, shared playlists. Somewhere along the way, that faded. It wasn't sudden. Just a slow erosion. Fewer conversations, more TV. No more spontaneous kisses. Affection replaced by routine. Sex? 11 months. I counted. I tried to bring it up. I tried everything. Maybe we should go away for the weekend. We never talk anymore. Do you still find me attractive? His answers were always the same. I'm just tired. You're overthinking again. Everything's fine. But it wasn't. I felt invisible. Like I could scream in the middle of the kitchen, and he'd just step around me to grab the milk. Then one night, I stopped at a bookstore after work. It was raining. I ducked inside to kill time, wet and tired and sad in a way I couldn't name. I wandered until a man near the coffee nook said, "That's a great book," nodding to the one in my hand. I smiled. Said thanks. It could have ended there. But he kept talking, not flirtatiously, curiously, kindly. He asked me what I liked to read, what my favorite film was, if I was okay, because you seem like someone who doesn't get asked that enough. It unraveled me. I sat with him for an hour, then another. He told me he was divorced, didn't date much, just liked bookstores at night. He didn't ask if I was married. I didn't offer it. I just wanted to be seen. We didn't exchange numbers. I went home and cried in the shower because that one conversation was more intimacy than I'd had in a year. But I went back the next week. So did he. The 3rd time we kissed. The 6th time we slept together. Once. Gently. Quietly. Like we were both holding something too fragile to name. I didn't feel powerful. I didn't feel sexy. I felt grief. Because in that moment, I realized what I had been missing. What I'd begged for in silence. I ended it after that. Blocked his number. Deleted the messages. I couldn't keep living that double life. Then I sat my husband down and told him everything. Every aching detail. He didn't cry. He didn't yell. He asked why I didn't just leave. And I said, because I didn't want to destroy us. I just wanted to wake you up. He moved out 2 weeks later. Now, I'm alone. I go to therapy. I walk a lot. I try not to look for faces in bookstores. I know what I did was wrong. But I also know this. When someone stops seeing you, you start disappearing. And sometimes, all it takes is one stranger saying, "I see you," to remind you, you're still there. He had a secret phone. So I got a secret of my own. I wasn't even trying to find it. I was cleaning our bedroom while he was at the gym. Same Saturday routine, same music in the background, same drawer I'd dusted 100 times. But this time, something was different. A black phone tucked under some old t-shirts. It was off. No case. No charger nearby. Just a burner. I stared at it like it might explode. When he got home, I didn't say anything. I cooked dinner. We watched TV. He kissed my forehead goodnight like he hadn't just detonated my entire world. The next morning, I bought a charger. It took 30 minutes to power on. And then? Messages. Hundreds of them. From multiple women. Some flirty, some explicit, all dated while we were married. While I was making his lunches. While I was waiting up for him to come home, late from work. There were photos. Pet names. One woman even called him babe in a screenshot of a flight confirmation. I should have screamed. I should have packed my bags. Instead, I made breakfast. I needed to think. I needed to see how deep it went. I played dumb for 2 weeks. I made love to a man I knew was lying. I let him talk about our future like it wasn't already on fire. I smiled and nodded and let him dig his own grave. And while he was at work, I made a plan. A friend of mine, let's call him Ray, had always been too respectful. Always there. Always just out of reach. He'd once said, "If you ever need anything, call me." So I did. I didn't lie to Ray. I told him everything. And I said, I don't want revenge. I want to remember what it feels like to be chosen. On purpose. Ray didn't hesitate. It wasn't dramatic. We didn't run to a hotel. We sat on his balcony and drank wine. Talked. Touched. Cried, honestly. When it happened, it felt like closure and defiance had a baby. I woke up feeling powerful and poisoned at the same time. The next day, I printed the messages from my husband's secret phone, put them in an envelope, and left it on his pillow with a note. This is yours. Just like she was. And she. And she. I hope the burner was worth burning this down. Then I left. Moved in with my sister for a while. He called, of course. Begged. Denied. Said I had ruined us. I laughed. No, babe. You just didn't know I had the guts to match your game. We're divorced now. I'm not with Ray either. That was a moment, not a forever. But I don't regret it, because he taught me how it feels to be disposable. And I taught him what it feels like when the thing you thought was weak walks away with fire in her hands. I cheated. Not for sex, but to remember what it felt like to be seen. I didn't plan to cheat. Honestly, I thought I was doing everything right. I supported my husband through layoffs, helped raise his siblings when his parents passed, kept the house, the holidays, the calendar, the peace. I was the glue in our lives. And he was somewhere else. Not physically. He was home. Every night. On the couch, in front of the TV, scrolling Reddit or gaming until 1 a.m. We hadn't had a real conversation in months. Our intimacy? Mechanical at best. If it happened at all. I brought it up once, how I felt like a ghost in our own marriage. He said I was being dramatic. That I expect too much. So I stopped expecting. Then came the man at work. Let's call him Ben. He wasn't flashy or even particularly my type. But he noticed things, like when I cut my hair or wore a new color. He'd ask about my day and actually listen. He laughed at my jokes. Asked for my opinion during meetings. Treated me like I mattered. I told myself it was harmless. That I was just starved for attention. That a few compliments and work lunches didn't mean anything. But the day he brought me coffee without asking, with exactly the almond milk and cinnamon I like, I felt something crack. It was a small thing, but it hit like a confession. Later that week, I stayed late to finish a deadline. So did he. We were the last two in the office, sitting across from each other. It started with venting about work, life, how hard it is to feel invisible in your own home. He opened up too. Said his ex never listened, that he always felt like he had to fight to be heard. When he looked at me, it felt like someone had turned on a light I didn't realize had been off. He didn't make a move. I did. It was a kiss, just one, and I pulled away instantly. Apologized. Panicked. But he didn't push or chase. He just said, "You deserve to be seen." I went home and cried in the shower. Not because I cheated, but because I realized I hadn't felt like a woman, like a person, in years. I didn't see Ben again like that. I shut it down. But the guilt was complicated. It wasn't about the act. It was about the truth it uncovered. I was lonely. I was neglected. And my marriage had already been broken long before that kiss. Eventually, I told my husband. Not about Ben, but about everything else. He shrugged. Said, "If you're unhappy, that's on you." So I left. Now, I'm alone. But I'm visible. I talk. I'm heard. I look in the mirror and see me, not someone's background character. I didn't cheat for lust. I cheated for oxygen. And I've been breathing ever since. He called me crazy for thinking he'd cheat, so I proved him right. For years, I was the insecure one. If I asked who he was texting late at night, I was paranoid. If I noticed him pulling away, I was needy. If I cried during arguments, too emotional. He told me over and over, "You always assume the worst about me." So I stopped asking questions. I swallowed my intuition like poison and forced myself to trust the version of reality he gave me. The one where he was just busy, just tired, just bad at texting. Until one night, I borrowed his laptop. He was asleep. I needed to check an email I'd sent from his account months ago. Simple. But when I opened his browser, his messages auto-logged into Instagram. And there she was. Her name was Natalie. Blonde. Flirty. Consistent. Months of messages. Photos. Plans. Inside jokes. Nicknames he never used for me. I scrolled until I felt physically sick. The last message was just a few hours ago. Can't wait to see you again. Miss your mouth. I didn't wake him. I closed the laptop, got in the shower, and sat on the floor until the water ran cold. I didn't cry. I just calculated. Because here's the thing, I didn't want to scream. I didn't want revenge porn or a dramatic Instagram caption. I wanted balance. So I gave him exactly what he always accused me of. I started an affair. Not out of passion. Out of clarity. I reconnected with someone I dated briefly in college. A kind man, single, stable. We had coffee, then dinner, then a night together in a quiet hotel. It was gentle, simple, but for the first time in years, I felt power not over someone else, but over myself. I didn't tell him immediately. I waited. Waited for him to lie again. Waited for him to roll his eyes when I asked why he came home late. Waited for him to say, "You're just being crazy again." Then I told him. I looked him dead in the eye and said, "You were right all along. I am capable of cheating. So now we're even. Unless you'd like me to pull up your DMs too." He went pale. Called me names. Said I was a monster. And I said no. I'm a mirror. And you just hate what you see in it. We split 2 weeks later. I didn't fight for the couch, the records, the apartment. I just packed my things and left. I don't regret what I did. Not because it was noble, but because it snapped the leash he kept around my neck, disguised as doubt. He called me crazy. But sometimes, the worst thing you can do to a liar is prove them right. He laughed when I cried, so I didn't laugh when I left his brother's bed. It started with silence. Then, laughter. Every time I tried to express myself about feeling neglected, unseen, overwhelmed, my husband would laugh. Not loud, not cruel, just a quiet, dismissive chuckle like I was being ridiculous. "You're too sensitive. God, it's always something with you. You're emotional. You'll get over it." I stopped talking eventually. Learned to cry in the shower so he wouldn't roll his eyes. Smiled in family photos. Smiled at his work parties. Smiled like it didn't sting when he forgot our anniversary, but remembered his fantasy football draft. The only person who noticed was his brother, Mark. Mark, who used to tease me like a sibling but started asking if I was okay. Mark, who showed up early to family dinners just to help me cook. Who once pulled me aside after a barbecue and said, "You looked like you were going to cry the whole time." "Are you?" I lied, of course. Said I was tired. But the cracks were showing. One night, after a particularly awful argument where my husband told me I was lucky anyone put up with me, I went outside to breathe. Mark was there. He dropped by to return a toolbox. He took one look at my face and said, "Tell me the truth." And I did. It spilled out of me like a dam breaking. Years of resentment. Loneliness. The coldness. The laughter. I didn't even realize I was crying until he reached out and wiped my cheek. He said, "You don't deserve that." And I broke. I leaned into him like he was the only solid thing left in the world. The kiss was impulsive, soft, barely there, but I didn't stop it. Neither did he. What happened after wasn't romantic. It was raw, fast, muted and chaotic. We didn't speak when it was over. Just lay there, staring at the ceiling, breathing like we'd run a marathon. I didn't do it for revenge. I did it because I wanted to feel something other than hollow. The guilt came fast, but it wasn't about the act. It was about the fact that the person who made me feel safe shared DNA with the one who made me feel small. I ended it after that. Told Mark we couldn't ever go there again. He respected that. We never spoke of it again. A month later, I left my husband. Not because of Mark. Because of me. Because I realized I deserved someone who didn't laugh when I broke. I never told him about the affair. But I think he knows. Mark and I aren't together. We probably never will be. But he was a mirror in a dark room. He showed me what care looked like. And once I saw it, I couldn't unsee how badly I was being treated. I'm not proud, but I'm free. And sometimes, freedom is born from the ugliest choices we never thought we'd make. We had the perfect life, but I was the only one living it. From the outside, we looked like a dream. Matching coffee mugs, golden retriever, framed vacation photos in every room. My friends used to say, "You guys are #goals." His family adored me. Our social media? Filtered and flawless. But behind closed doors? I was a prop in his perfectly curated life. He didn't hit me. He didn't yell. He didn't cheat, at least not in the obvious ways. He just stopped showing up emotionally. Stopped talking unless it was logistics. Stopped touching me unless it was performative. I'd cry and he'd sigh. I'd ask what was wrong and he'd say, "Nothing. Why can't you just be happy?" I was supposed to be happy. After all, I had everything. A house, a husband, a life people envied. But I felt more alone than when I was single. I tried to fix it. Books, therapy, notes left in lunchboxes. But he wasn't interested in fixing something he didn't think was broken. You're always so dramatic. I started going for long walks in the evening, just to get out of the house. One night, I stopped at a quiet wine bar nearby. I just needed noise, people, laughter, conversation I wasn't a part of. That's where I met Theo. He was sitting at the bar sketching something in a notebook. We locked eyes, shared a nod, and went back to our own silences. But he was there again the next week. And the one after. Eventually, we started talking. About books. Music. Small things. I told him I was married early and clearly. He never crossed a line. Until I did. One rainy night, I walked in soaking wet. He offered his coat. I sat beside him shaking and said, "Do you ever feel like your life looks amazing, but you're completely hollow inside?" He nodded. Every day, before I started living for myself. I don't know what snapped. Maybe it was the kindness. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe it was the loneliness I'd been choking on for years. I kissed him. Just once. But it was soft and safe and felt like breathing for the first time in forever. We didn't sleep together. I left after that kiss and cried the whole walk home. But that moment? It was the first time I felt seen in years. I didn't cheat for passion or revenge. I cheated with a kiss to remember I was alive. A few months later, I asked my husband for a separation. He was shocked. Said he thought we were fine. He always thought we were fine. That's the problem. Now, I rent a small apartment. I have less space, fewer matching mugs, but more laughter, more light, more truth. Theo and I don't speak anymore. He was a moment, not a future. But I'll always be grateful for the night he reminded me that perfect doesn't mean real, and that pretending to be happy is no substitute for actually being it. My therapist told me to find joy again. So I found it in her husband. I didn't plan it. I swear I didn't. I started therapy after a slow spiral, nothing dramatic, just that gray fog of feeling numb. My marriage had lost its pulse. My job was draining. Every day felt like I was pretending to care about things I used to love. My therapist, Dr. Harper, was kind, calm, steady, the kind of woman who could disarm you with silence. I liked her immediately. She told me early on, "You don't have to fix everything. Just start by finding something small that brings you joy." So I tried. Walks, painting, music. It helped a little. Then one day, I ran into her husband. I didn't know it was him at first. I was at an art gallery opening alone, and he struck up a conversation near a painting I'd been staring at for 10 minutes. He was funny, open, asked questions like he genuinely wanted the answers. We talked about art, life, Music. It was the first real conversation I'd had in months where I didn't feel like I had to edit myself. At the end of the night, I told him my name. He smiled and said, "I'm Ethan. My wife's a therapist. You'd love her." I froze. Ethan. Dr. Harper's Ethan. She'd mentioned him in passing, how he encouraged her work, how he was supportive and patient. I felt my stomach drop, but I didn't walk away. We didn't plan to see each other again. But we did. Once, then again. Always accidental at first. Then not. He never brought up my therapy. I never brought up his marriage. It was like we were two people slipping into each other's shadows, both hungry for something we weren't getting at home. The affair wasn't sexual for weeks. It was long talks in coffee shops, sharing earbuds while walking through bookstores, sitting side by side in silent understanding. But of course, it didn't stay innocent. The first time it happened, we were both shaking. He whispered, "I didn't mean for this to happen." And I whispered, "Me neither." I skipped therapy that week. The guilt was unbearable. I couldn't look Dr. Harper in the eye. I canceled, made up excuses, told myself I'd stop seeing Ethan. But I didn't. Not right away. Eventually, I confessed. To her. Not the full story, but enough. I said I'd crossed a line. That I'd found joy, but in the wrong place. She didn't press. Just said, "Sometimes we reach for the wrong person because we think we don't deserve better." It was the last session. I ended things with Ethan a few days later. He didn't fight me on it. Now, I'm back in therapy with someone new. Healing, learning, sitting with the shame. I'm not proud of what I did. But for the first time, I understand why I did it. Because when you've been numb long enough, even the wrong fire feels warm. He forgot our anniversary, so I remembered how my ex used to celebrate it. The day came and went. No flowers. No dinner reservation. Not even a happy anniversary text. I reminded him in the morning, casually, "Hey, 10 years today." He kissed my cheek and said, "Wow, already? That's wild." Then he left for work and didn't bring it up again. I waited all day, told myself he was planning something. That he'd surprise me with a card, a note, anything. By 10 p.m., I was sitting on the couch with my phone in one hand and a pit in my stomach. He walked in with takeout. His order, not mine. Sat down, opened Netflix, and said, "You want to watch something?" I didn't respond. I went upstairs and cried in the bathroom like I hadn't done that exact thing last year. Or the year before. I wasn't even mad. I was tired. 10 years of birthdays he forgot. Dinners where I did the talking. Holidays where I wrapped my own gifts because he's not good at that stuff. Excuses. Always excuses. That night, I scrolled through my old photos. And there he was, my ex Daniel. We'd broken up because of timing, not toxicity. He moved for work. I stayed behind. We loved each other, but it wasn't enough. Still, he was the kind of man who remembered things. Little things. He once made me a playlist with songs that reminded him of me. Took me on a surprise picnic with my favorite food after a bad week. He'd leave handwritten notes in my purse. He celebrated our 6-month anniversary like it was a national holiday. So when I saw his name light up in my inbox, just a LinkedIn connection request of all things, I don't know what possessed me to accept it. Or replied his message when it came 2 days later. He said, "Can't believe it's been so long. Hope you're happy." I wasn't. And I said as much. We met for coffee. Just once. Just to catch up. I told myself it was innocent. It wasn't. He looked at me like I mattered. Like time had made him softer, not colder. He asked questions. He remembered I hated cinnamon. He noticed the tiny scar on my hand from a kitchen accident I'd forgotten I even had. And when I started crying, he didn't flinch. He just said, "You've always deserved more than crumbs." That night, we didn't sleep together. But I held his hand. And he held all the pieces I'd been hiding. I didn't leave my husband that week. Or the next. But eventually, I did. Not for Daniel. We said goodbye, knowing we were a chapter, not a sequel. I left because I realized that staying with someone who forgets your heart is a quiet kind of dying. And I don't want to die in small doses anymore. He told me no man would ever want me again, so I let one prove him wrong. I married him when I was 23. He was older, charming in a way that felt safe, steady. At first, I thought his protectiveness was love. That his "I just worry about you" comments came from care, not control. But it changed slowly. Too slowly for me to notice until it was everywhere. He criticized how I dressed. "You're not 20 anymore," he'd say. He made me feel stupid for having dreams. Why bother? It's not like you'll finish that degree. When I tried to speak up, he laughed. "You're overreacting. You always do." And the most damaging thing? He made me believe no one else would ever want me. "You're lucky I'm still here," he once said after he forgot our anniversary. "No one else would deal with you." It sat in me like poison. I stopped trying. Stopped dressing up. Stopped talking in rooms full of people because I could hear his voice in my head. "Don't embarrass yourself." One night, I was at a friend's birthday dinner. He didn't come. Said I wasn't worth the social energy. I almost didn't go either, but something in me, some desperate little flicker, dragged me out of the house. That's where I met Matt. He wasn't flashy. He didn't flirt. But he listened, laughed at my jokes. When I talked about wanting to go back to school for art therapy, he said, "That's actually amazing. You'd be great at it." He didn't know me, but he saw me. I told myself it was just one conversation. I was just grateful someone noticed I was still alive. But we kept running into each other. Mutual friends, same cafes. He always remembered what I said. Always looked me in the eye like I wasn't something small. Then came the night he said, "I hope this doesn't cross a line, but you're beautiful. And whoever made you feel otherwise was lying." I didn't kiss him. Not then. But that night I went home, looked in the mirror, and didn't hate the woman staring back. A week later, I slept with him. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't a declaration. It was a reminder. I was still lovable. Still touchable. Still wanted. I ended things with my husband 2 months later. Not because of Matt, he was a catalyst, not a crutch. But because once you remember what worth feels like, you stop settling for wounds. He tried to guilt me. "You think anyone's going to love you now that you've ruined your body, wasted your youth?" I smiled and said, "Someone already does. Me." Matt and I didn't become forever. But he handed me back the pieces I'd forgotten I owned. And now, every time I hear my old fears whisper, "No one will want you," I laugh. Because I know better. I want me. And that's where everything changed. While he built a secret life, I quietly built one of my own. I didn't find the hotel key in his pocket or lipstick on his collar. I found it in the cloud. He'd left his email logged in on our shared iPad. I wasn't snooping, just looking up a recipe. But then I saw an autofill pop up. Marriott reservation confirmation. Curious, I clicked. 3 trips in the last 5 months. All booked during weekends. He claimed he was working overtime. Each reservation was for 2 guests. At first, I thought, no. There has to be another explanation. So I looked deeper. Photos. Uber receipts. 1 dinner charge with a note. Anniversary night 2 hearts. Not our anniversary. I didn't confront him. Not right away. Instead, I stared at the truth like a locked door I wasn't ready to walk through. I sat with it for a week. Then 2. I still cooked his dinner. Still folded his laundry. Still pretended not to flinch when he kissed my forehead. Then I started building. I got a second phone. Opened a savings account in a different bank. I picked up extra freelance work. Told him I was rediscovering old hobbies when I started taking web development classes. He didn't ask questions. Never noticed when I stayed up late. Never noticed much at all, really, unless it was something that inconvenienced him. 6 months passed. By then, I had a remote side business running. Money flowing. A rented studio apartment under my name. My own health insurance. Everything I needed to leave without looking back. And I was almost ready. Then I got the final sign. He came home late from work. I was curled up on the couch reading. He bent down to kiss me and said, "You're such a good wife. You always wait up." The audacity hit me like a wave. That night, I packed everything while he slept. Left the ring on the kitchen counter with a note. "While you were building a second life behind my back, I quietly built my first one without you. I don't need to catch you in the act. I've already outgrown the role." When he woke up, I was gone. No yelling. No drama. No slammed doors. Just silence and a trail of receipts he never saw coming. He called, texted, emailed, begged. I never replied. I'd wasted years explaining my pain to a man who only ever pretended to listen. I didn't need closure. I needed peace. Now, I run a business from my tiny apartment. I drink coffee slowly. I take walks at sunset. And I sleep in a bed that holds only one person but feels fuller than our king-sized ever did. People think cheating is just about sex. But betrayal? It starts in the moments you're not seen, not heard, not chosen. So I chose myself. And I've never looked back. Dear women, please write in the comments your cases when you could no longer tolerate your husband and cheated on him.